Good morning, church family. It is good to see all of you here this morning. Such a wonderful time together, wonderful time to be able to worship God together and enjoy the encouragement that we receive from each other. And as I was thinking about how to begin this lesson this morning, I couldn't help but my mind automatically went to sports, as it often does, because I've always enjoyed sports. And I know that's not everybody's thing, but I think you'll understand why my mind went there in just a moment. I've always enjoyed different kinds of sports and tried playing different kinds of sports. Never really was successful at playing any sports very much, but I enjoyed them, and I enjoyed running the bases, for example. You know, in baseball, you got to run the bases, and I always enjoyed trying to get to that next base as quick as I could or something. And then when I got to college, the club that I was in, we played club sports, and so we played flag football was one of the sports that we played, and I enjoyed as a wide receiver running and trying to get loose and trying to get open so that the quarterback could throw me the ball. And it didn't happen very often. And I've always enjoyed running as a part of the sport. You know, running in a racquetball court, or running up and down the basketball court, or running on the football field or the baseball field, and all those kinds of things. But something that has never, ever, ever crossed my mind as something that I would ever enjoy doing, Mark, is running for the sake of running. I don't understand. You know, and I know that there are a lot of people. I understand that I am in the growing minority when it comes to this, because there's so many people that just enjoy running, and you're all crazy. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, where am I going? Where am I headed? But you know, what's funny is that it almost makes me laugh that as our culture has become more and more and more obsessed with this idea of running for the sake of running, it's these charity events where you have to pay someone else to let you run. And I'm thinking, that is the last thing I would do. You would have to pay me to go run a 5K or a 10K or Mark ran a 8K yesterday. Is that what you said? Yeah, an 8K. I have no idea what that is. But it's all of these half marathons and all these things. It's just growing and growing and growing in popularity. And you know, some people enjoy punishment and pain. So you know, more power to them. But it's a growing form of exercise, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But I have often wondered if this growing interest in running is perhaps connected to this growing and growing desire for everything in life to be faster. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever noticed in your lifetime how much faster everything has become, or how much faster it seems everybody thinks things have to be? You know, think of something as simple as fast food. You know, before there was fast food, what was there? Food, okay? It was just food, right? And it wasn't slow food. It was just the way things were. And then fast food came along. But even that has changed over the years, hasn't it? It used to be that you would go to a fast food restaurant and you would have to go in and you go to the counter and you order your food. And it was amazing because in just a couple minutes you could actually have the food that you ordered. And then you would take that food and you would go sit down at a table and you would eat it. And then you would leave. That's not the way it is anymore, is it? Because these days you pull out your phone and you get on the Chick-fil-A app, and you punch in what you want, so that then you can drive through the drive-thru and get your food and eat it in your car, as nature intended, right? And why do we do that? Well, because it's faster. And then it lets me get to the next thing faster. The next item on my to-do list, faster. So even fast food is getting faster and faster. And we want, I saw a quote from Domino's CEO years ago. Remember, the thing that really got Domino's started was how they promised to deliver in 30 minutes or less. And the Domino's CEO said, "We are not selling pizza. We are selling delivery." And I thought, well, that's a brilliant business model. But it just goes to show that that's what works, is selling fast. And so we want faster food, and we want faster service, and we want faster internet. And even we want faster roads. Have you noticed how the speed limit gets higher and higher and higher, it seems? I remember a couple years ago talking to Dana's father, and he was really excited because there was this new toll road going in near Austin, Texas, where they live. And there's a 40-mile stretch where the speed limit is 85, which of course means most everybody's going 95, right? That is so fast. And that's the speed limit, you know. So with all of this that's faster and faster and faster, what does that do for us? And this desire that seems to be growing within us for things to be faster, what does that lead to? Well, one author used this phrase that I really like. He says, what we have in our culture is hurry sickness. And I like that phrase a lot, because I think he's exactly right. We are in a hurry all the time. Now, here's the question. How do you know whether or not your hurry might be a problem? Well, I think there are some symptoms that we could talk about that could be indicators that you might be struggling, at least somewhat, with hurry sickness. And so here are some ideas. Number one, do you find yourself speeding up or trying to speed up daily activities? Here's what I mean by that. For example, if you drive up to an intersection and the light has turned red, and you look around and you have no idea why your light is red. There's nobody in the other intersection. How frustrated do you get with the fact that you have to sit and wait for no apparent reason? Asher laughs at me because there's a red light right next to the school, and he's already laughing because he knows where I'm going with this. 9 times out of 10, that red light right next to the school makes us stop. And I get frustrated every time. Because if we're stopped 9 times out of 10 by that red light, 9 of those 10 times, I guarantee you there was no reason for us to stop. In fact, there's been times where all of a sudden the light turns red and we have to slow down real quick and we stop for the red light, and then we wait about 10 seconds and then it turns green again and we just look around going, what was that? And then there's other times where we've stopped for that same red light and I look around and nobody's moving. And I'm thinking, so everybody has a red light right now for some reason. But how frustrated do you get? What about when you go to the grocery store and it's time for you to check out? Whether it's the grocery store or somewhere else, which line do you choose? Well, duh, you pick the shortest line possible, right? But do you ever find yourself looking at people that got in a different line at the same time as you? And you say, oh, look, they're already out. Man, I picked the wrong line. And then you see that the cashier at your line is struggling with an item they can't find the price for, or it won't scan, or the person's struggling to pay with whatever payment they're trying to use, or they pull out the checkbook and they're writing real slow on that checkbook, and you're just sitting there going, come on. That's hurry sickness. trying to speed up just everyday activities, hoping to speed them up in some way. Another indicator of hurry sickness is multitasking. And this one, I think, is difficult for some of us to agree that this is a problem, because we have somehow in our culture convinced ourselves that multitasking is a badge of honor, that we should wear that with pride. Look at how I was able to do 9 things at once and do none of them well. Do you ever try to drive your car and eat your breakfast and listen to the news all at the same time? Do you ever find yourself trying to eat with your family and watch the TV and keep up with your text messages or social media all at the same time? This multitasking that has infiltrated our lives and has become something that we think is a virtue is actually a symptom of hurry sickness. And then the other symptom that we can talk about is clutter. And I don't mean physical clutter, for those of you that have seen my office. I don't mean physical clutter. But what happens is our lives can so easily get weighed down by so many things because we have not said no to enough things in this life. And when we say yes to so many things, then our lives get cluttered, and we begin to forget things, and we forget important dates, and we forget responsibilities, and we forget about engagements that we've agreed to. This is all symptoms of hurry sickness. We keep adding in more and more and more to our lives and trying to go from here to there as quickly as we possibly can. Hurry sickness, as it's called, is a real problem. And here's the thing that we need to acknowledge this morning. It is not just a problem in our physical lives. It's not a problem just because of the way it affects our physical lives, just because you get frustrated and impatient at a red light. That's not really what we're talking about this morning, because these are just symptoms of the underlying issue. The same author who coined this phrase, I believe he coined it, this hurry sickness phrase, emphasized that this is a spiritual problem. And here's why. He says that the great danger of hurry sickness is not that as a result we will renounce our faith. It is that we will become so distracted and rushed and preoccupied that we will settle for a mediocre version of it. Let that sink in for a minute. Because when we're rushing through this life, when we're trying to multitask all the time, it affects the way we relate to our God. Think about this. Just last month, the month of March, we had these prayer booklets that we were going through, and we were trying our best every day to take 3 opportunities to pause and pray to God and consider something from one of the first 90 Psalms. I wonder how often you might have found yourself just trying to hurry through that so that you could move on to the next thing on your to-do list. Just hurry through it because you felt obligated to do it, and so you just did it to get it out of the way. You see, this idea of hurry affects our relationship with God. And so for the month of April, we're going to focus on the practice of slowing. The practice of slowing down. And it's important that we acknowledge something this morning. In spite of what is so often such a fast-paced life, in spite of the fact that we see this trend growing and growing and growing in our culture, and the idea that everything needs to be faster and faster and faster, what we must acknowledge this morning is that following Jesus cannot be done at a sprint. I hope you heard that. Following Jesus cannot be done at a sprint. Or you could maybe say, in a hurry. In keeping with our running theme as it appears this morning, it's important that we accept the fact that our spiritual lives are not a 100-yard dash. And I think that you've seen that this year already as we have talked about some of the important areas in which we need to do better, the areas in which we need to grow. Because when it comes to joy and being more joyful, that is not something that happens overnight. When it comes to our ability to have better self-control, that is not something that we are able to accomplish in a hurry or quickly. Following Jesus cannot be done in a sprint. Now, why is that? Well, we're going to look at several passages this morning that help us understand this. And the first thing that we need to understand from these passages is how that we see that Jesus himself was not ever described as being in a hurry. Now, there were a lot of people around Jesus who wanted him to be in a hurry. But what we'll notice is that most of the time, Jesus is trying to slow everyone else down. Look at Mark chapter 5, first of all. What we see beginning with verse 21 is Jairus comes to Jesus because his daughter is ill. In fact, she is sick to the point of death. And you know that he's in a hurry. You know that any parent whose child is that sick wants Jesus to hurry up and do something about it. But we also see in verse 30, when a woman who has her own health issues reaches out and she touches Jesus' garment, Jesus stops to address her. And it's not because she's done anything wrong. In fact, Jesus praises her in verse 34 when he says, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." But in that moment, this woman needed something more than just the physical healing that she received by touching Jesus' garment. She needed Jesus' kindness and compassion, because these are likely things she had not experienced very much of over the last 12 years of her life. And so Jesus stopped there when those around him wanted him to hurry up and move on. Then in Matthew chapter 19, we see that there are people bringing their children to Jesus. In fact, in Luke's account, Luke emphasizes that these are not just teenagers or anything of that sort. We're talking about little children, babies even, that are being brought to Jesus. And Jesus' own disciples are rebuking the people for this. And it would seem that they felt as though these were not worth Jesus' time. Jesus had more important tasks to take care of. Jesus had more important people that he needed to see to. They are in a hurry to get Jesus on to the next thing, but Jesus slowed everyone down to bless those children. And then in Matthew 20, I think we see one of several similar examples in the life of Jesus. When Jesus is interrupted. And we don't like to be interrupted, do we? We don't like how things that happen in this life interrupt our plans and slow us down from what we thought we were supposed to be doing. But on this occasion, there's two blind men sitting beside the side of the road, and they begin to cry out, "Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David." And this time it's the crowd that tries to say, shush, be quiet, leave him alone. Have you ever wondered why they would do that? Why would they care if these men were crying out to Jesus? Well, if you look at the beginning of the next chapter in Matthew 21, you'll see where Jesus is headed. He is on his way into Jerusalem the week of the Passover. This is an important time. And Jesus is an important man, as many have begun to understand. And so what important man at an important time has time for these two beggars on the side of the street? But in verse 32, we read this, and stopping, Jesus called them and said, "What do you want me to do for you?" They said to him, "Lord, let our eyes be opened." And Jesus, in pity, touched their eyes, and immediately they recovered their sight and followed him. Following Jesus cannot be done at a sprint. Why? Because first of all, we see over and over and over throughout Scripture that Jesus himself was not in a hurry. And secondly, the reason that's important is because you cannot follow someone at a faster pace than they are going. Because then you're not following anymore. And therein lies the problem with hurry. If Jesus had hurried through these encounters, if Jesus had hurried through so much of what we read throughout Scripture, he would have ignored the pain and the suffering of the people that were around him. And the problem is, when we in our lives begin to allow hurry to take over, we do that exact thing. We ignore the opportunities that we have to show the world the love and the compassion and the patience of our God. It takes time to do those things, real time. And that's something that hurried people never seem to have much of. So instead, the hurried life ends up sounding a lot more like what Jesus describes in Luke chapter 8 and verse 14 when he is describing in the parable of the soils. One of those soils he describes this way, "And as for what fell among the thorns, they are those who hear, but as they go their way, they are choked by the cares and riches and pleasures of life, and their fruit does not mature." Spiritual maturity means allowing ourselves to think beyond the immediate concerns of this world and this day and this time. In fact, one of the fruits of the Spirit is patience. And in case you haven't figured this out, you can't be both patient and in a hurry at the same time. It doesn't work. Patience, then, is our goal for the month of April. But as we all know, patience is kind of hard to obtain, isn't it? How many times have you had someone tell you, "Don't pray for patience"? And you know why? Because if you pray for patience, then God's going to give you something to be patient about. I hope that at least for the rest of this month, you will remove that thought completely from your mind. Because we need to pray for patience. It is one of the fruits of the Spirit. It is something we all need in our lives in order to be healthy Christians and followers of Jesus. But also, should we not acknowledge the fact that if we are praying to God for patience, it's probably because you already have something in your life that is trying your patience. But as we have seen in the previous 3 months, just because I want to be more patient doesn't mean I automatically am. Just because I pray to God for patience doesn't mean that I wake up tomorrow morning and am immediately more patient. It requires practice. It requires work. In order for us to cultivate spiritual growth in any area, there are certain practices that need to be put into place. And so for the month of April, we're going to work on some things that are going to help us slow down. Because the practice of slowing down is all about helping us to be better and more patient Christians. So here are the goals for this month. And I acknowledge I forgot in my hurry this week to create a printout for you to take home with you this morning. I will have those tonight, okay? And then later this week. And then we'll post it on the Facebook page or something so that you can access it. All right, so here are the goals that will be on that piece of paper at some point. But I want us to acknowledge the fact that these are not going to be easy, because patience is not easy. Number one, brace yourself. For the month of April, drive in the slow lane. Not jumping back and forth, not going around the person in front of you who's not going the speed that you want. Go with the flow of traffic. And if there's 2 lanes, drive in the right one, not the left one, the right-hand lane, no matter how slow they are going. Now here's the reality of this. The reason so many of you are laughing is because you know that in your mind and in this process of doing this, you know this is going to be a challenge because it is so frustrating to do this exact thing. And we get so irritated with how slow people will drive, and we struggle with this. But you know what the reality is? By weaving in and out of traffic and by trying to speed around people and doing all of these things, you save maybe 2.5 minutes of your life. And so, with this practice in mind, just leave 5 minutes earlier. It's okay. You can. I promise you can do this. It is possible. And what you will be given is a couple extra minutes in your car to be patient and to pray for the driver in front of you that is slowing you down, and to pray to God for your own continued patience. Now, I will tell you that there was an occasion where I suggested this, and the next day one of the elders came to me and said, it took me forever because I thought I was behind you and I was afraid to pass. So maybe just pretend I'm in front of you and I'm going to notice. No. Drive in the slow lane for the rest of April. Secondly, eat slower. You know, we get so caught up in the time and we eat so fast and we try to get on to the next thing. Enjoy your food. And then lastly, when you're in line at Walmart or Aldi or Harris Teeter or wherever you are, intentionally choose the longer line. Again, what are we really talking about here? If we're totally honest with ourselves, we're talking about 5 minutes. And for some reason in our minds, it seems like it's an eternity. And if at some point you see someone who's looking like they're in a hurry, let them in front of you. Let them go on. And by putting into practice these things that are going to help us slow down, we will become less and less hurried. which means we'll be less and less harried, right? Less hurried means less harried and more patient with the people around us. Therefore, allowing us to show them the love and kindness and patience of the Lord that we claim to follow. The great danger of hurry is not that we will renounce our faith. It is that we will become so distracted and rushed and preoccupied that we settle for a mediocre version of it. Let's not do that. Let's not settle for a mediocre version of our faith in God. Let's follow Jesus in a less hurried life. And that way, we can show the world more and more and more love and compassion and patience. And I know that patience is likely something that almost every single one of us struggles with at some point in life. But I hope that you also know that whatever your struggle is today, whether it's patience or something else, that we're here to help each other. You know, throughout the month of April, we may be saying a lot of prayers for each other as we struggle to do these things, as we try to grow and do better in our patience. But right now, there may be something in your life that is really trying your patience, that is really causing you a great deal of grief and pain and sorrow and stress. We want to pray with you this morning if that's what you need. We want to help you in whatever it is so that you can grow closer to God. And if you need to be baptized into Jesus Christ today so that you can begin a brand new life in Him as your sins are washed away by His blood, then there is no more important decision that you can make today. Whatever it is that you're dealing with, whatever challenges you're facing, we want to support you and help you in any way that we can. You just need to take those steps to come and let us know how we can help you right now while we stand together and while we sing.